Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Keenan.
Heidi thinks that Mickey Rourke took makeup off for this movie.
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and it really gets my goat when a guy hits a dame.
Let me tell you, we have a great episode here for you today, and it's brought to you by, get this, the people that listen to this show. That's right. This is our Patreon episode. This episode voted upon by you, the lovely people that go to patreon.com/HMP. Donate a couple shekels our way. You guys get to vote every month, and today you have voted for the month of November, Sin City from 2000, I believe, 5, if memory serves, right off the top of my head. It may be a little bit earlier.
2005, you're right.
Oh, look at that. Sometimes I even amaze myself. We're going to be talking about the Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller joint. And I think we got a lot of fun stuff to say. So this is all because of you. And if you would also like to be a part of the voting team, you can go to patreon.com/HMP. We'll have a voting up there fairly soon, and I'm going to warn you guys who are on the Patreon that this vote's going to go super quick because December is chock full of a lot of stuff, and I think we're doing our Patreon. That episode's going to be the second week of December, so you're going to have a quick week to vote. So
you got to get those nominees up quick, Adam.
No dilly-dallying. So, yeah, I'm going to have to get those nominees up. They'll be there, I don't want to say first thing Monday, but they'll be, by the end of the day Monday, they'll be there. So don't worry about that. But thank you guys so much for, doing that, and we really appreciate it. That's what keeps this thing going. You know what else keeps us going? People that go out and take time out of their blessed day and go review us on the iTunes. Did you know that? We have iTunes reviews, and guess what? They're all fantastic. So the first one that we got up this week is going to be entitled Show Full of Fun, Humdingers, and Chowder Buckets. It says Chatter Buckets, but that's not right. It doesn't matter. And this one is from Cyberlinks, and it's got in the parenthetical there, Scotty McLean. So this one's from Scotty, 5 stars, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And speaking of Humdinger, this is one. Scotty writes as follows. I've been listening to the show since Bruce talked about it on Heroes and Villains. I'm glad that he did, and I know that I'll get a good laugh and have fun and have a fun drive. When I see the new one come on, I get the downloads about the time I get out of playing D&D, and that makes the hour-long drive back at 3 a.m. fun and exciting. Let me tell you, there is no one that's not more our market than this guy.
Yeah, man, I love the dedicated tabletop gamer.
It's like coming out 3 a.m., throws on some HMP. You got to love that. Bruce being the knowledgeable of the comic book world, Sean being the knowledgeable of the movie-making field and Stallone connection, and Adam bringing every man aspect of the movie critic point of view with all of the I'm reading it like he wrote it. Don't get this on me. With all of the bring in the laughs as though they are still trying to do stand-up. That almost kind of hurts, but it is true. If you're looking for a podcast about heroes and superhero movies, this is the best and only place I would ever turn to. Keep up the good work. Thanks for all the laughs. No, thank you, Scotty, for going out there and giving us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger. Thank you, Scotty.
We really appreciate that. And if you'd like to go out and give us one of those as well, we'd really appreciate it. That helps other people find this program that are like you and go, hey, I want to see this stuff. Lots of iTunes reviews help us go up in the rankings. And from our downloads and stuff, we can tell you that is working. It absolutely is. And, we got another one. We got an email here, actually.
Nice.
This one is from longtime listener. And if you listen to the end of the show, like I sincerely hope that you do every single week, you'll know this name. This one is from Marty.
Hey.
And it's entitled, I'm a Prickly Cauliflower. Marty writes as follows, hey guys, sending in my first HMP mail here. See, he's going with the...
Love it. Thank you, Marty.
Or as I'm sure he wrote it and would rather me see HMP mail here. I don't know what is wrong with you, Brits. You're adding way more letters. Hey, I could say the word Z, or I could just say Z. What a bunch of weirdos. I love you to death, but my goodness, get it together, people. All right, so now since I berated him, he knows it's all from love, though, so I can do that with him. Any new listeners I have to be nice to and hold with, get gloves. Marty, I can bash around a little bit, and he knows it's fine. I just had a binge listen to Doctor Strange / X-Men 2 / Spider-Man 77 episodes. Man, what a great time. Really, really enjoyed them, as always. Yet I'm sure 8-year-old Marty remembered Spider-Man as being exciting and full of cutting-edge effects as any modern-day blockbuster. Well, maybe. Maybe not. I have a friend who teaches martial arts, and I'll have to ask him, the next weapon up from kendo sticks is indeed flamethrower. Hey, why not? Anywho, with the Christmas season upon us, I thought you would like to partake in the HMP drinking game I'm working on. We've had one of these before. This one, I think, almost takes it to another level. I like this. Take a drink for any one of the following instances. Again, this is all at user discretion.
Chocolate milk. Use chocolate milk.
Use chocolate milk for this. We want to see you guys alive at the end of this. And when you hear these, you're going to realize why we, really hope that you do chocolate milk instead. Take a drink for each one of the following instances. Adam Fluff's reading an email. Well, that could... I think you got at least 5 at this point right now as far as that goes. Bruce drops an obscure 30-year-old TV / actor reference.
Okay.
Sean moans about an animated feature. Well, that could be about any of these. Mention of chowder buckets, much lacking lately, guys. Maybe you want to watch an episode of Avengers XXX. I think Stan Lee of Vin Diesel collaboration there. Trust me, there's going to be some chowder bucket talk on this here program, so fear not, my friend. Mention of quote-unquote doing this stuff. Again, you'll be drinking more on this episode. Or a mention of Darkman. So, I don't know. Darkman doesn't get as much thing. I think he just wants us to talk about Darkman more is what that really means. Extra drink.
Wants to hear a few Peyton Westlake. Is that his name? Peyton Westlake references?
Sure. Extra drink for the below. Any reference to footwear, especially Adidas.
Mm-hmm.
And any quote-unquote guest speakers such as Stan the Man, Keanu Reeves, or my personal favorite, Nick Cage. That's it for me, guys. Loving the show as much as Dr. Dan Do hates it. Peace out. By the way, also finished watching Luke Cage. Hey, cut me some slack. Electricity is still a new thing around here. Totally agree. The first half but fell really flat in the second, and the power and the power suit just stank. And that is from Marty. Marty, thanks for the graciously long email, and for those of you keeping track, that's at least 3 drinks for me in that email. So if you would like to send us an email, a.k.a. a HMP mail, you can email us at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. Well, we talked about Sin City: A Dame to Kill For was our first kind of big thing back in the day when we first started the show. I think it was on episode 12, if memory serves. So we have yet to get around to actually reviewing Sin City proper. And so that is what we're going to do by request of the lovely people at Patreon. So let's go ahead and listen to the trailer for Sin City.
Goldie's dead. I've been framed for murder, and the cops are in on it.
Open up, police.
I'll be right out. Looking for Nancy Callahan?
Eyes to the stage, Pilgrim. She's just warming up.
Made a terrible mistake. We need to get out of here. Break this second. This clown's out of control. We followed him here to make sure he didn't hurt any of the girls.
Us helpless little girls.
It's time to prove to your friends that you're worth a damn. Sometimes that means dying. Sometimes it means killing a whole lot of people. back alley in Sin City, and you can find anything.
All right, that was the trailer for Sin City, our retro review of the week, brought to you, of course, by our people at Patreon. Here's the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A film that explores the dark and miserable town Basin City and tells the story of three different people all caught up in violent corruption. This is written and directed by Frank Miller and, of course, Robert Rodriguez, starring Mickey Rourke, Clive Owen, Bruce Willis, Jessica Alba, Devin Aoki, Alexis Bledel, Powers Booth, then you got Rosario Dawson. There's 8 billion people in this. Benicio Del Toro, Michael Clark Duncan, Rutger Hauer, Josh Hart, you name it. There's 8 billion people in this thing. Jamie King, Michael Madsen. I could go on for days. That's how Robert Rodriguez works. He's so fast. He works with everybody for 10 minutes, and then they go home, and he gets a feature film out of it. Now, we've covered Sin City a bit before on this show, so I wonder what our good friend Bruce Leslie has for us this week in the Comic Connection. Bruce, what do you got for us?
Well, this is kind of easy because I wasn't doing so much of a comic connection back when we were 12 episodes deep. So I'm just going to start it from the top.
Sure.
And also, can you guys remember on episode 12 where you thought we could do like 80 episodes of this show max and we'd be out of movies?
Yeah. Wasn't that crazy?
I do. We talk about it all the time.
And now we're worried, like, how are we going to fit all the December movies in? That's crazy, man. December's not even a hot month. But anyway, Sin City is the collective term for a series of comic book stories written by Frank Miller and described as neo-noir, though I'm happy calling it simply noir. It was published by Dark Horse beginning in 1991, and personally, I think it marks Frank Miller's first success outside of the big two. Also, at least from my perspective, it marks the first and perhaps only time Frank Miller's had success with original characters and concepts. If you think about it, even 300 was based on historical events and inspired by a subpar movie called 300 Spartans from like the 60s or 70s. Mm-hmm. Now, Sin City stories have been collected into 7 trades, and the first, third, and fourth of those trades were the source material for this movie. The Hard Goodbye tells the story of Marv, an ex-military man and a trained professional killer who gets revenge for a wrong done to a dame who was nice to him once. Now, in the comic story, we get to meet Marv's mom, who is omitted from the movie. But the story all ends with Marv being fried in the electric chair. As a result of the Hard Goodbye, Frank Miller won both Best Artist Writer Eisner Award for Sin City, as well as the Best Penciler and or Inker in a black and white publication for the same story at the Eisner Award. So that's kind of a rare writer-artist combo win for the same guy in the same year. Yeah. Now, the movie skips completely over a dame to kill for and goes straight to the big fat kill, the third story in the series, but faithfully references things that the non-comic reader, maybe the Sin City noob, would be confused by, like Dwight's new face and the dynamic of his relationship with Shelley, or how Shelley fell in with Jackie Boy. It added an air of mystery to the story, but unfortunately, so much time passed before the prequel film was made that people had kind of given up on that puzzle years ago, and I would say the box office demonstrated as much. Now, the fourth trade, titled The Yellow Bastard, was mostly the final piece of the tapestry of this movie. The decision to include the first, third, and fourth really makes me wonder why Rodriguez wanted to skip over a dame to kill for so badly. I guess if he adapted books 1, 2, and 3, it would have been entirely too much Dwight, even if he does get a new face before the final act. And I suppose when you have access to the Yellow Bastard, you use the Yellow Bastard. Also, you have to use Marv, so I guess that he really just had to decide which Dwight story to use, and maybe Miller flipped a coin. One thing you'll notice is that no screenwriting credit is given for this movie. The sole writing credit is simply based on the graphic novels by Frank Miller, and I've got to say that this is one of the most faithful shot-for-shot comic adaptations I've ever seen. I've referred to it as a live-action motion comic before. Though I consider Sin City to be the prime example of de novo world building for Miller, it's still important to point out that Basin City seems a lot like Gotham, with Old Town District maybe being Hell's Kitchen. Miho certainly contains an echo of Elektra, who of course is another of Miller's creations. And I'm pretty sure Marv could easily fit into Bruce Wayne's Batsuit from The Dark Knight Returns. Cardinal Rourke reminds me of the heavily Catholic storylines in Daredevil Born Again. And really, when you boil it down, how easily could you see Gale as an Elseworlds Catwoman? But it's not uncommon to see writers stick with themes which they're comfortable. It's not uncommon to see writers stick with themes with which they are comfortable. And I had to rewrite that sentence so that a preposition it wouldn't end with. After all, Pablo Picasso is widely quoted as having said that good artists borrow, great artists steal. And in the case of Sin City, I would say that Frank Miller is a good artist. And by that metric, I guess Bob Kane really was a great. Let's all pour a little bit out for Bill Finger there, guys.
Yeah. It was still nice because, like, I was kind of going through and rewatching some stuff for kind of our end of the year, and I pulled up the Batman v Superman thing, and it still put a smile on my face seeing Bill Finger actually credited in the opening there. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's about darn time.
Yeah, like 40 years after somebody's dead usually is a good time to start giving them some credit.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, look, the cat suffered well enough. Let's let him in on a little bit of action. Does it mean a dime? Not a single one. Why don't you get the heck on out of here with that talk, sir? But you can have your name up there in the lights. Big Hollywood lights up on the IMAX screen. So, yeah, man, 2005, long time ago at this point. And I was super, super stoked to see this thing. I was familiar enough with the books. I mean, I wasn't necessarily a super fan, but I read them. And I was really happy to see, what was on screen. I think I saw this twice. Once where I had to walk out in the middle due to a fire alarm. That was weird.
That always makes a movie enjoyable.
Yeah, I was just like, well, this is glad I saw it previously. So,
is this part of a movie? Is this part of the movie?
I had another situation where I went to see Grindhouse for the second time at like a really cruddy theater, and like during the middle of the second movie, the because it was on film, of course, the light on the projector went out. And, of course, everybody's looking like, oh, this is part of the gag. And I'm like, no, this is not part of the gag. We're just in a crummy theater, so these things happen.
Oh, man. When my family went to see Frozen a couple years back, the power went out when we sat down in the theater, and they said, just stay seated. When the power comes back on, we'll start the movie. And then after about 30 minutes, they came and said they were going to refund everybody's tickets. And then to make a long story short, that was the year that a derecho hit the town I live in, and the power was out for 10 days. So that would have been a long wait if we were waiting for them to restart that movie.
Hold on. Hold it. Hold it. I'm not going, Daddy. I'm not going till this movie starts. Let it go, dear. Oh, you see how I wrapped it around?
Yeah.
What's the term you just used? Derecho?
Yes, a derecho is a non-cyclonic high wind storm opposed to a tornado, which has cyclonic winds.
People tune into this show.
I didn't know what one was either until it hit my town.
People tune into this show every single week, and they're like, man, I'm going to get some nerdy comic book action. And it's always, I'm no surprise. It's always Bruce that will bring us some other level that we weren't even expecting to get nerded on. And he does it. And so I applaud you, sir.
And
I like to think of our show as funtertainment.
Oh, of course.
And as an interesting bit of trivia, if you look up derecho on Wikipedia, it has a picture of a car that was crushed by a tree in the neighborhood I lived in at the time.
Derecho is also one of the best new hip hop acts you kids are going to see in 2017. Sit back, it's going to happen, I promise. I was
just going to get us back to the movie here.
Oh, I was angling that way myself.
The first thing I want to know what your guys' take on is for this movie. The thing I remember most about it, and the thing that this movie seemed to receive the most attention for. I mean, I think it even screened at Cannes, and everybody was talking about the color processing. And I think that is the one thing, if you remember nothing else about this movie, that you remember is the way they dealt with color in this movie. Can you guys maybe shed any light on that process or give your opinions on it?
Well, technically, this should be color timing, because color processing would mean that there would be some film involved. There was zero film involved with this movie. So this was all done in HD. The way that this movie actually came about was this is something that Robert Rodriguez had kind of wanted to do for a long time. And, of course, this was Frank Miller's baby, and Frank Miller has, kind of all rights and whatever to it. So they can't do anything with it without his permission. So Robert Rodriguez decided to see what he could do and kind of get Frank Miller on board with doing this. So he'd actually shot a couple of things, done a couple of tests with green screen and whatnot, and made something that looked fairly convincing. And said, hey, Frank, why don't you come on down to Austin? We're outside the Hollywood lights. I know you've had some bad experiences with Hollywood before, and Lord knows you don't want to have anything to do with those guys again. But come on down to Austin, Texas. It's a lot different than Hollywood. We'll sit down. We'll make a little film. It'll be kind of like like a little student film here. It'll be nice and simple. And if you like it, hey, maybe we can go on further. But if you don't, you'll have something cool that you can show people at Christmas parties going, look at this awesome thing that we made. And Frank Miller's like, okay, sure, I'll give that a shot. Well, he goes down there, and sure enough, his little student film, as it were, had a big, giant production behind it. You had Josh Hartnett and Marley Shelton there. And he goes, Robert, this is the student film that we're doing here. He's just like, well, we'll just see what we can do. And he had already had like the entire title sequence that you see put together. He already put that together. The pull out from the Sin City at the beginning. So they shot the entire thing in one day, and Frank Miller kind of fell in love with it. So that's how this thing kind of was birthed, if you will.
And then when you don't have Robert Rodriguez on your film, you end up making The Spirit.
Good gravy. We'll cover that at some point, but my gosh.
The only real demand that Frank Miller had was that you had to get some Powers Booth in here. He said, no, nothing with Frank Miller's name on it. It's going to go up without Powers Booth.
Of course. but
he was a big Airwolf fan or whatever.
That's a sneaky comic book guy. How many comic book properties has Powers Booth been in at this point?
I know at least one.
Well, let me you guys keep talking. I'll look.
But anyway, this intro here with Josh Hartnett had me thinking, Adam, why don't you like Hartnett? I know you're not a fan of Hartnett, and I've never quite understood why. Why don't you educate me a little bit?
Here's the thing. I think Josh Hartnett is a beautiful man. I don't think he is a very talented actor. I think he can do okay. I think in small doses, Josh Hartnett is fine, such as this movie. He's in there.
Very small dose of Hartnett here.
He's in there for maybe 8 to 10 minutes. But if you look at something like, and I know people like this movie, and I don't care, Lucky Number 11 is a piece of garbage. And that's a piece of garbage. I've never seen that one. It's a piece of garbage because of Josh Hartnett. It's a piece of garbage for other reasons, but he's one of the main reasons that movie stinks. Josh Hartnett is nice enough. He can be a small character actor, but he's not the leading man in something. The only other thing, oddly enough, would be a Robert Rodriguez joint, would be The Faculty, that I would say with that. But outside of that, he's just not. He just doesn't have the gravity that I want. He's a pretty face, but he just doesn't hold the acting candle for me.
See, I consider Josh Hartnett to be a neutral factor. I'm not going to go to the box office because it's a Josh Hartnett flick, but I don't have any ill will towards the man. I was always curious why you weren't a fan.
No, I mean, like I said, I think I'm probably the same. I don't really hate the guy, but like, Lord knows I'm not stoked when he's there. I don't go, ooh, another Josh Hartnett film. Who cares?
And I've got another question for you, Adam, to see if you agree, disagree, or what. But I kind of have always felt like this is a cleverly disguised anthology movie. People aren't generally fired up about anthology movies. And this has some things, not much of a through story, really, but the consistency of style and the look of everything. I think sometimes people don't realize they're watching an anthology movie. What do you think? Do you think people know right off the bat this is an anthology movie, or do you think it sneaks up on some folks?
Oh, I definitely think it sneaks up on folks. And honestly, I know that most people probably don't even really truly realize it's kind of an anthology until we get to Act 3. Essentially, when we come back to the Yellow Bastard storyline, because I think people, and then because all of a sudden you see people alive again, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, what the heck's going on here?
And this is just like Cat's Eye, only instead of a cat, you've got Jessica Alba.
Of course.
And I prefer the way the cat could act over Alba personally.
Well, Jessica Alba has her
Jessica Alba's
moments.
my Josh Hartnett.
There you go.
All the things you said about not liking Josh Hartnett, I think I say that about Jessica Alba, because what kind of awful chowder bucket hating person casts someone who refuses to do nudity as Nancy, who is pretty much an ever nude in the comics.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things. So I guess we'll kind of jump around here because there's a lot of story to cover in this bad boy. But that was
you guys want to hear about Powers Booth?
Sure.
Oh, that's what I've been sitting on the edge of this stool waiting to hear.
All right. So here you go. You got Sin City. You got this one, You got he's in Avengers / Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because he plays the same character.
Nice.
Yeah.
He does a voice on Ben 10, whether you want to call that a comic book property or not. I mean, it's made by comic book people. It makes sense.
Yeah,
I'll approve it.
He does a voice in the video game of Turok.
Oh, Acclaim, man. They bought Valiant Comics just for the video game tie-ins once upon a time.
I do not blame them for doing that. And the last thing is he is the voice of Grodd on the Justice League cartoon.
Well, there you go.
Perfect casting right there, man. I'd like to see him do a live-action Grodd. Is he still alive? Is Powers Booth still alive?
Oh, yeah, he's still alive.
I'd like to see him do a live-action Grodd on The Flash next season.
Done and done.
And we're good. What were we talking about? Jessica Alba.
Well, Jessica Alba. What are your thoughts, Sean? Jessica Alba. Or do you have any thoughts?
He's like, I've summed them up there justly. Thank you.
That works for me, man.
You're talking about. I'm sorry, I had to let my dog out. We're talking about Jessica Alba, or we're talking about Josh Hart.
Yeah, we're
talking about Jessica Alba right now.
Yeah.
Jessica Alba is not an actress.
Okay, agreed.
She is set dressing. She's lovely, lovely set dressing, but she is no actress.
And do you agree with me that she's hesitant to use like what's really the only talent she has?
If I'm her, I would too. You give people what they want. You're yesterday's news. So I think
you wait till you turn 40, then you do your first topless scene to get a job.
Yes.
Work for Diane Keaton. No. Here's the thing. To me, as a reader of the comic and everything, and all right, well, I'm going to backtrack for just half a second. So the big thing is like, if she's, she was hesitant to really do it, and that makes sense. Whatever, she is who she is, especially around 2005. But at the same time as well, they kind of sort of, you'll hear Rodriguez and Frank Miller just go, it could be very distracting and, whatever. And I'll say as a reader of the book and everything, it was more distracting to me that she was wearing a top than not. Because, like you said, it's such an integral part of that character is that character is always topless. So seeing that character with the top is more, I mean, if Darth Vader walked around without his mask on, you'd be like, well, this is just off-putting.
And I mean, this whole genre of neo-noir, this whole thing, this whole dirty, gritty. It's like Frank Miller's trying to bring, what's the guy's name? Charles Bukowski to comic books with this. And the whole idea is in this world, the nice, sweet girl next door still has to go topless to make a living. It doesn't mean that she is a trollop, so to speak, but it's just what you got to do to get by when you're an orphan in Sin City.
Trollop. Also, take a drink for that one because that's just old-timey man as it is. Oh, she's a trollop, I tell you. But no, and here's the thing, and I'll also say this. I think it's also part of the fact of Jessica Alba, while a very attractive lady, not an overly voluptuous lady. And I think that's one of the reasons why she probably didn't want to do it. Because if you look at the comic, the Nancy character, a very well-endowed gal. And I think ultimately it would have been like, oh, well, that's... Sometimes things are better left to the imagination.
Does Frank Miller draw anything other than that,
That's a good point.
And his women look a lot like Liefeld's men do in the chess department.
Yeah, well, very much true.
But we get this Josh Hartnett story, the idea, it kind of, and I understand why this is in here because this is the scene that got the movie made. So they already had it and they stuck it in. They found a way to wrap it up nicely at the end. But the movie really starts with Bruce Willis as Hartigan with the big X-shaped scar on his forehead, going to stop Senator Rourke's son from doing horrible, horrible things to this 11-year-old version of Nancy.
Well, let's talk about Hartigan for a second here. So Bruce Willis is Hartigan, and now, in the comics and everything, with me, it always just seemed like he was just the oldest dude ever. He's even talking about the retirement here and everything. Bruce Willis is probably around maybe just hitting 50 by the time that this movie comes out. And I just don't buy the oldness. For me, when I always read it, I was like, that's Clint Eastwood.
And and Bob even calls it out. You're pushing 60, which makes me think he's got to be at least 57 to call him pushing 60.
Yeah.
And the whole angina, the heart problem, and to be honest, Bruce Willis kind of looks old when he's young and kind of looks younger than he is when he's old. He's got this weird, he's like got this middle age that he's always looked.
He's
you go back and
Benjamin
watch Moonlighting. You go back and watch Moonlighting when he's probably like 28 years old and he's got the receding hairline and the salt and pepper scruffy beard. I mean, the guy's always kind of looked almost 50. Even now, I don't know how old he is now, he still looks kind of almost 50.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis was 50 when they shot this.
Boom. I'm good.
But playing a guy that was 57.
So playing a guy that's 57, and then we shotgun forward a couple of years. He hasn't aged a day. I'd be fine if they just aged him up further on, even in the other one. And Lord knows, when they got the people from K&B on this, they've got plenty of access to makeup. I wish they would have at least made him older come the Flash forward. That's maybe my only super gripe is that he just doesn't seem old
works for
enough.
me. It works for me in comic books because you look at Alfred when Bruce Wayne was a kid, and you look at Alfred when Bruce Wayne's 35 or 40, and it's still the same Alfred. I mean, that works for me in the comic book.
Well, that's because he got bit by a vampire and is immortal. We all know that, right? That's in canon.
Well, you don't know what kind of stuff they pumped into Hartigan when Rourke wanted to make sure he didn't die so he could go to prison.
That's a good point.
They had to test the Grail on somebody, you guys.
Exactly. There you go. But yeah,
Sean
like
Connery would have made a great Hartigan. Not to get too far off track.
I took away his weapon.
You wouldn't have been able to get rid of that accent with that guy. Come on.
You just change it to John O'Hartigan.
There you go.
But we get this whole setup story, and I like it. I know where it's going because I've seen the movie before. I've read the comics, and I think this is kind of fun. I like Bob shooting him in the back. I love it because this is when we're really introduced to the way blood looks like the ooze from inside of a glow stick in this movie, and I really like that look of blood.
Yeah, it's really like the best thing that they ever did was really just kind of take Frank Miller's art design and really just go with it. And be able to do it the way that it is in the comics. Now it's not quite as stylized as the comics. I mean, there's obviously a bit more color in here and a lot of different facets, and we'll talk about reasons as to why.
I was going to say in the comics, I think the Yellow Bastard is the only character I ever remember having color to him.
There was one with a red dress. I forget the name of the story. There was some red in there.
Probably in the Dame to Kill For. I think she had some red in there.
No, the Dame to Kill For is all black and white, or at least in the printing I got. I'll put it that way.
I'm trying to look at my shelf and I can't find it.
There's another one with some blue in it. I think like a blue dress or something. Maybe I'm forgetting. It's been a while, but
and I think there was the story about the man with one red shoe, but I might be confusing my properties.
The Red Shoe Diaries. That's different. That's way different than what we're looking at.
It was the Tom Hanks episode.
Okay. But
got giant hands. That guy.
Forgot about giant hands, Tom Hanks.
He does.
It's kind of true. I'm gonna keep watching. But no, I like this whole thing. I still to this day, and I'm just like, how can you just? I'm telling him not to go there. Don't go there, and then just straight up shoots him in the back. I thought, how is this gonna look on any sort of police report?
Yeah. And, man, it's nice to see, the guy that at this point, the last time I'd seen him was probably Reservoir Dogs.
He's done some stuff, but Madsen's also led quite the roller coaster of a life, let's put it.
Was this after Kill Bill?
Let's say that guy's got a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Was this after Kill Bill? Because maybe it hadn't been that long since I'd seen him.
No.
I get my timelines mixed up.
I believe this, I'm fairly certain this was before, yeah. Yeah, fairly.
Looking it up. Keep going.
I'm not sure.
After we get this introduction to the 11-year-old Nancy and to Rourke Jr., the senator's son, and we get all the setup to see what happened to Hartigan, then we go into Marv's story. And I like it that they kept the hard goodbye pretty much intact. They didn't break it up.
Yeah, there's not a lot that's kind of...
Kill Bill is 2003, 2004.
Okay, well, there you
Sin
go.
City is 2005.
Okay.
So I'd been seeing this guy once a year at this point.
He was becoming practically a member of the family.
He was top billed.
Michael Madsen.
You're crazy, the craziest member of your family.
Yeah.
Far and away. And that's really saying something in my family.
But yeah, just keep it. But keeping all the Marv story pretty much intact and everything, that's what I liked. And I will say this for those of you out there, the Blu-ray edition and that's out there is spectacular. There's a way that you can go through, listen to the commentary, and they have all kinds of comparisons between everything from what you're seeing on screen to what it looked like on blue screen to what the comic book panels were like, all while Rodriguez and Frank Miller are doing a commentary. Really, really informative, really, really good. So if you got that, check that out. And I think you can get that thing super cheap now. So.
And I'll say my favorite thing from this movie, one of my favorite things from probably all of comic book movies is this scene where Marv is fighting the police and escaping, and he jumps both feet first through the cop car and just all this crazy action stuff. I mean, Marv is a totally unrealistic, fantastical comic book tough guy, and they keep it all intact for the movie, which, so often they're tempted to dial things down just a little bit when they translate it from a comic book to a movie. And they left Marv pretty much intact.
Frank Miller turning things to 11? Nah, it doesn't sound like the Frank Miller I know.
Oh, but it's just so much fun.
I can't remember my mindset going into this movie. I can't remember if I was like, good luck, boys, with your Sin City movie. I can't remember, but I remember walking out of it thinking, wow, they really did a great job. Do you guys remember if you thought it was going to be good or not before you ever walked in?
I thought it was going to be good. I really did, but I was pretty naive then. I thought everything was going to be good. I really did.
I thought it was going to be good. I think the main point was really because I was such a Robert Rodriguez fan at that point. I mean, this was really kind of his real era here is the kind of early 2000s and stuff where he would just go, hey, I've dreamt up something. Let's go and do it. And it would be shot for little amounts of money and would make buku dollars at the box office. And
I was a little bummed that Antonio Banderas wasn't in this movie, but I still gave it a shot.
No Banderas.
Well, you got him in 4 Rooms. You got him in Spy Kids. You're good, man.
Yeah. But I loved him in that movie where he was a mariachi guy. I don't remember what the movie was called, but it was a good movie.
Desperado.
I get it confused with El Mariachi, which is the one without anybody famous in it.
Yeah, that was which is great because Desperado is kind of a sequel, kind of a remake, a little bit. It's the Evil Dead 2 of the Rodriguez verse.
Exactly. It's a remake with added scenes.
Exactly. But with
it's the director's cut with new actors.
But the weird thing is there's like a flashback to the first movie, which most people didn't see, and you're just like, what is this doing in here if you've never seen it before? It's kind of odd. But it's not like an actual flashback. They recreated everything from there, but put Antonio Banderas. It's odd and cool at the same time.
And also the hard goodbye is the story that really gives us the chowder buckets in this movie, because you get him with Goldie right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Then when he's running from the cops, he does something that the only other person I can imagine doing something like this would be the real world Mickey Rourke. But he's running from the cops, so he goes to lay low at his parole officer's house.
As one does.
And he's got those bandages on him that are just hilarious to me.
But I'm saving them.
Good.
Yeah, I was going to I was going to mention at the top of the show that out of all my friends that I have, at least half of them have worked with Mickey Rourke.
But Carlo Giacchino.
That's my way of saying I have 2 friends, guys.
He's a sad man. He's up that Adam Portrais level, is what I say.
But I love the way that the little surgical tape, the little sticky white tape, is just kind of put on his face willy-nilly, not really corresponding with anything, and then he's got like the X-shaped Band-Aid over one of his eyes. I just think it's hilarious the way that Marv looks, and I gotta say, man, I really like Marv. I'm really liking the movie at this point, and I'm really liking this story.
And it's such a smart way of how they really kind of did everything and kept so much to that style of kind of the white on black as opposed to the black on white was the majority of kind of Frank Miller's drawing in the Sin City books and whatnot. And really being able to do that and do it on green screen and do it right, because the cool thing is they'd put kind of these like phosphorescent colors on like the bandages or blood or things like that, and then put a black light on it. That way they could key it differently when they actually put it up for processing later. It's really cool.
And
idea.
Man, some of the little details, I just got to hand it to Rodriguez. Some of the little details, like when Marv has like the bouncer guy in the bar and he's shoving his head in the toilet, you can tell that there are clearly deposits in that toilet. Like the little touches go a long way in a movie like this.
Oh, yes.
You can see the brown floaters in there as his head's getting dunked. And then here's something I've got to ask you guys about, because in the comics, I think I got a little confused by this. I think they make it a lot more clear in the movie. But in the comics, you meet Cardinal Rourke before you ever meet Senator Rourke. So when they first introduced Cardinal Rourke here, I wondered if people thought this was the same guy, like the senator became a cardinal. Like for me, reading the comics, I got a little confused at one point if the cardinal and the senator were the same person. But I think here they give you a throwaway line that he even made his brother a senator.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully it looks like you do get that like clarification there, because I think I was on the same page with you as far as confusing goes.
And then you get Cardinal Rourke, you get Senator Rourke, you got Mickey Rourke in the scene. Just a little too mumuch Rourke here. You know, that's the one thing I'll say is, especially reading the comics, I got a little confused about the Rourke family.
And then you got Mickey Rooney dying this week. It's all sad news, man.
Oh, man. And, there's Take a Drink. Only it wasn't me that mentioned the old-timey actor. It was Adam.
Yeah, there you go. It still works.
But when he does go see the Cardinal, I'm the kind of guy that just can't get too much Rutger Hauer. How about you guys?
Yeah, sometimes I can.
You can get too much Rutger Hauer?
I like Rutger Hauer, but also Rutger Hauer is like one of these guys, especially once you start to hear him kind of talk a little bit, he takes himself way too bloody seriously. And I don't know, he can kind of, from a lot of stories I've heard, he's also a bit of a jerk too.
Well, he had me at Hello. He had me at Tears in the Rain, Roy Batty. So I've always been, and I like The Hitcher or whatever that he was in. So I've been a Rutger Hauer fan for a long time.
I like his work more than I dislike it, but sometimes if he does fine here, but again, it all kind of depends on the role.
I haven't seen all of his straight-to-video movies. I'm sure there's some stinkers out there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's all good. And the nice part is that while this movie is right at like 2 hours there, it chugs along at a pretty decent pace. You always feel like that's another nice part about Rodriguez is he's not one to sit and kind of dwell on something for much longer than he needs to.
And another couple of shots that I really liked is when Goldie's twin sister Wendy shows up driving the car and she just starts hitting Marv, and Marv is like flying 30 feet in the air and landing. She goes back and hits him again. I thought that was a really, really fun series of events there, too.
And I could be wrong, but no, I don't know if it was. I'm trying to think of when Jamie King went from being James King, because that's like her actual name, but like it confused people. They're like, why does this lady have a man's name?
Yeah.
I feel like it was this movie. It may have been one before, but I don't know. I was just. It always kind of went weird to me that I figured out an actor's name and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, we've changed it just because people were confused.
Oh, man. But I love the way that he just gets flung up so high in the air. They're having a lot of fun with this movie, a lot of dark fun, but I like it. I like it when he goes back to Old Town and he's all tied up and they're slapping him and interrogating him. And then once he reaches an agreement with him, he just stands up like he wasn't really tied down at all.
Just shrugging him off, just like, look, I was funning you. I was just entertaining the fantasy that you had me trapped here.
And I would have really liked it if instead of having him like being sort of playing nice, if he'd have just been so dumb that he didn't realize that the ropes weren't tied. You know what I mean? Because I kind of like a little bit of a dumb Marv.
I can see that. All of a sudden, just Rosario Dawson slaps him, just go, you idiot, we didn't even have you tied down.
Yeah, that would have been a little bit of fun, but I do like that, man. And I think that's where he says something about it really gets my goat when a guy hits a dame or something like that. Just straight up Frank Miller dialogue from Sin City, and who better to spit that kind of junk out than Mickey Rourke?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I always kind of liked, and I think one of the best things that Frank Miller's ever done, and that's why I still contest that, I know a lot of people will say Dark Knight, Returns and all this stuff. But yeah. I still think Sin City is really his best stuff because it speaks, like he's just got such a knack for this kind of dialogue, for this kind of patter, for the old noir stuff and everything. You can tell that this is a guy who loves that stuff, is very much influenced by it, but also kind of uses it to his own devices as well. And I
mean, the guy dresses like Sam Spade. This has got to be in his wheelhouse.
This is true.
And, I guess for me, kind of the big surprise bit of enjoyment out of this movie is when Marv gets to the farm and we meet the Hobbit as a bloodthirsty killer. And I wasn't, I really like that. That was not something I saw Elijah Wood giving me, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, everybody was.
This is my favorite part. Movie.
Oh yeah, everybody's big thought was like Elijah Wood is this crazed, psychopath killer and everything. I don't buy it. And
you
mean
to tell me that Frodo's going to beat up the wrestler? No way.
And the great part is those two never were on set together.
Awesome.
Yeah. So so Elijah Wood and Mickey never on the set at the same time.
And the whole idea of him being mute and wearing that Charlie Brown shirt that has the neon on it and those little Harry Potter glasses. I mean, in a way, Elijah Wood is kind of a Daniel Radcliffe type. I almost saw this as evil Harry Potter watching it this go around.
Well, he's got tons of stories of how people think how each of those guys, gets mistaken for the other constantly. So
I'm not Harry, I'm Frodo.
Yeah.
But I love this silent killer and with those gnarly long fingernails. And then they called it a wolf, but it just looked like a German Shepherd to me. Did it look like a wolf to you guys?
wolfish, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Then again, that's coming from a guy. I don't know that I've never really seen a wolf. Maybe I've seen a coyote before, but I don't know if I've seen a wolf or if I just thought it was a dog.
This could be a wolf or a dog. I ain't taking no chances.
Does he have a collar?
It's got to be a wolf if he doesn't have a collar.
But I also like kind of the reveal that, Kevin is the name of Elijah Wood's character, this silent killer, or as I like to call him, silent but deadly. But anyway, so Kevin has like the heads of all these working girls from Old Town mounted on what looks like it kind of looks like the room in Saw that they're stuck in the first Saw movie. It's all kind of tiled up. And Lucille, the parole officer, Carla Gugino, is there and lets him know that she's seen Kevin eating these ladies. He only feeds the bones to the dog. And then she reveals that her own hand has been cut off and eaten by Kevin. And they're building a really creepy, dark kind of villain here, man. This is a little Silence of the Lambs kind of villain here.
Yeah, it's so good.
And then the reveal with the
best
cardinal.
part of the movie.
And the reveal with the cardinal, how he just kind of took Kevin in under his wing, and then suddenly Kevin, who doesn't talk to anyone, would talk to the cardinal, and he told him this story about when he eats these women's bodies, he's getting their souls, and it's leading him to God. So the cardinal's joining in this cannibalistic ritual. Man, this is really nice, sick, dark stuff that a lot of people wouldn't do, and I say even fewer would probably do now than they did then.
And I just go, Frank Miller. And the people go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he didn't have any Cardinals. He didn't have any Cardinals eating hookers in Holy Terror, but that's nowhere near as good as Sin City.
This much is true.
I don't know. We pretty much covered the hard goodbye. I mean, eventually after he succeeds in killing the Cardinal, right? The cops get him after he kills the Cardinal. The Cardinal doesn't live here.
Yeah.
And then the way they take him in, they just show him beating him up, trying to get him to sign the confession. Finally, this prosecutor or assistant prosecutor comes in and says, basically, sign it or we're going to hurt your mom. And, in the comics, we get to meet his mom. So I think it had a little more impact when you hear that line or when you read that line in the comics than it does when you hear it here in the movie.
Yeah.
But I love the way that Marv's reaction is, fine, I'll sign it, but I'm going to break the prosecutor's arm in 3 places first.
It's such great use of color there and everything when he spits on it and it's all red and it's so cool looking. I as much as it's cool to have all the kind of proper black and white stuff, I do love all the different splashes of color and stuff that they added in for the movie.
And then when he finally gets shaved, man, as if Marv wasn't funny looking enough. When they shave him, he's really funny looking there. And they put the cap on him, and they give him the first jolt of electricity, and I love it that he just kind of growls back at him. Is that the best some kind of profane word can do or something like that?
Yeah. To me, that was like the ultimate BA line where he's just like, really? What, are you going to tickle me a little bit? Huh? It's so good. It's such a Frank Miller thing to write.
And then the next story goes into... the next story goes into the Big Fat Kill, I think is the next story, which is like the second of Dwight's stories in the comics because A Dame to Kill For is like the first story arc with Dwight. Mm-hmm. So I remembered thinking, in retrospect, that this was where the movie kind of started to drag a little bit. And watching it this time through, I think I like some aspects of it. I love Benicio del Toro, but I did start to feel like maybe this segment went on a little longer than it needed to in the grand scheme of the movie, because by the time we get back to the Yellow Bastard, I'm sort of getting a little exhausted or a little tired, or maybe, they can't go from something as high energy as the hard goodbye and then bring it down with a lot of slow, more cerebral stuff that we get in the Big Fat Kill.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of the creepy kind of stuff going on. And this is also where we get a guest directing by Quentin Tarantino. in this
And
particular.
yeah, and I guess Tarantino directed the part where Benicio del Toro's dead body is talking to talking to Clive Owen. I think the chapter's called Designated Driver. I think that's what he directed, if I understand it correctly.
That's correct.
And that was kind of fun, but that's almost like an episode of Tales from the Crypt or something that would be like a segment in Creepshow, but doesn't seem to match the tone as much as this, or even in like a Hellboy movie where he's talking to someone who actually is dead. That would fit in, but they don't really, I forgot about how much of Dwight's character we don't know in this movie, because knowing as much as I do about Dwight and having seen A Dame to Kill For and read the comics, I thought we knew more about Dwight, but they don't even mention, the whole idea that Dwight's fighting really hard to be recovering from his alcohol abuse. We get a throwaway line about his new face, but no explanation of why he has a new face. And if you know A Dame to Kill For, you understand why he's hallucinating, but I don't think you understand why he's hallucinating if this is all you've got.
That I was so happy to have had read A Dame to Kill For before the movie and everything, because like you said, there are moments that you miss out on. Is like if you don't have that backstory in your pocket already, you do miss out on a lot of good stuff, and I that's unfortunate for those people. But it gives you a little bit more incentive if you read the books.
Yeah, and if you've read the books, you understand that Minute is a really interesting character. But, Minute, who's cast like as perfectly as I could ever imagine Minute being cast, I forgot just how little we know about that character in this movie. He just seems like a random mob enforcer here. You don't, when you don't know his backstory and his whole, how he lost his eye and that sort of thing and his history with Dwight.
Yeah, and which all is covered in Dame to Kill For and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. But
it's tough.
Anyway, it's, there's also when he finally goes back to face off against Minute and the mobster guys that are with Minute, and he talks about choosing the right place to fight, and he gets this real narrow spot in an alley and gets up on like a dumpster or something and waits to fight against these guys. Frank Miller has said that when he wrote that scene in the comics, he was thinking about the Battle of Thermopylae, and of course he wrote this story before he went on to later write 300, which is all about the Battle of Thermopylae. So it's kind of nice to see that little consistent theme, from one movie / story to the next by the same creative force.
Whenever I hear that, I always think of Homer Simpson saying trampoline.
Yeah. But, it's fun because we find out that Becky, one of the Old Town ladies, has betrayed the Old Town girls. And we really learn them. We met the Old Town girls when Marv went over there to see him, but we really didn't understand what the Old Town girls were until this story. And to be honest, even though I call this a Dwight story, this is really a story about the Old Town girls, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll say this is one of the times that you just go, Frank Miller, thanks for your art direction, sir.
Yeah, and Miho is right up there with Marv as one of the most memorable standout characters from the Sin City series of comics, and I think Devin Aoki does a pretty good job as Miho, but I don't remember the name of the actress. I like the Miho, I think, in A Dame to Kill For a little bit better. Yeah,
it escapes me at this point.
But, her dad started Benihana, so she's a natural with those swords. But what about the swastika throwing star things, man? Was that just a little bit much?
So here's the thing. So let's talk a little bit about this because a lot of people don't know. So the actual swastika itself is actually a bent upon a religious symbol. Think of taking a cross and turning it upside down, right?
Yeah, it's from Eastern religions primarily.
So
it's not really got much to do with the cross, but
right?
It's sort of a symbol of good luck in Eastern religions.
Right. I'm trying to give an analogy, man.
Sorry.
But so the actual one being cocked on its side there, that's what was put up for the Nazi flag and everything like that. So that's a bit of the difference there. So with what that is coming from what the culture and what I know of that stuff is, doesn't bug me. I don't watch Master of the Flying Guillotine and go like, look at him throwing the swastika stuff at the guy. It's like, no, that's a thing.
Okay, so maybe it was inspired. What was that you just referenced there? Master of the Flying Guillotine?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Oh, so good.
Kung Fu classic, because maybe that's what inspired the look of this. But if I'm putting it back to Miller, I think he's just trying to be extreme. I guess. This is 90s extreme era where he's just trying to get a reaction.
No, that comes out. It comes out of ancient Asian stuff. So It's
Well, I mean, okay, cool.
it's from there. He's not just trying to be Tim. He's not trying to be himself. He's not trying to be Frank Miller.
So where do you come down on it, Sean? Pro or con swastika?
Well, as you guys know, I'm very pro swastika.
Oh, good.
I've been noticeably quiet, I think, on this episode because I think that you guys like this a lot more than I do. And before we started the show tonight, I even said to you guys, I remember liking this a whole lot more than I do now. I found myself rolling my eyes a lot watching this.
Where do you think it? Do you think that this is where it started to drag, this Dwight story, the big fat kill?
Well, I do, and also because I know from the books, because I read so many of them, that I know there's no ending to this. I mean, it's a lot of ladies shooting one guy. Like that's literally what happens. And for me, the thing that gets me most, I think, is just the Frank Miller dialogue. Frank Miller's dialogue is just, me who I am now versus me 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I just, I find myself rolling my eyes all the time at the dialogue of Frank Miller.
And it works for me when it's coming out of Marv's mouth. It doesn't work for me coming out of Clive Owen. However, I kind of, not to just be pandering to the drinking game, but I kind of would like to have seen a Nick Cage Dwight. Especially after Face Off, I think it would have just been a little meta.
Well, and that's what kind of like, and I'm a Brolin fan as much as the next guy, but I really would have liked to see Clive Owen kind of resurge in the Dame to Kill For movie and everything because hey, he does get his face changed. I'm still disappointed on that. I don't know why I still hold that.
I still would have gone for the long game and had Nick Cage be Dwight in this movie than John Travolta in A Dame to Kill For.
You're on this Nick Cage.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
And then after
Doves
this
are flying everywhere.
By the way, I love Benicio del Toro. Love the guy. I don't know that he really brings a lot to this particular movie. I don't think he's given a chance to bring much. I found this to be kind of subdued Del Toro.
Yeah, he does. Well, he's still strange as all get out, I think.
Yeah. And the first time that I watched this back in 2000, whatever, when it came out, for just a minute, because I know they're doing stuff with the timeline, for just a minute, I thought that Jackie Boy was supposed to be old Bob. And then I finally figured out that he's not. Or I thought maybe it was young Bob, but then you figure out that he's not, obviously.
I don't know.
Is it Mark Madsen that was Bob? That's who I was wondering.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be the same guy? Because it's not real convincing that they're the same guy, but obviously it's not.
Clearly. We didn't add makeup to him previously. Why I had makeup to him afterward.
And then we fly back into sort of the 8 years later on the old Yellow Bastard.
Mm-hmm.
And we get Hartigan's story, how he wound up in prison. He got those letters from Cordelia, which I don't know. Is there like a young adult series of books with a detective named Cordelia? Is there like a Cordelia Bedelia, like an Encyclopedia Brown equivalent?
I was about to say, I know there's an Amelia Bedelia. That's about all I know. Those were popular when I was a kid.
Harriet the spy and Cordelia the detective. Maybe they teamed up once, big crossover. But anyway, he's getting those letters for 8 years. Then suddenly he gets an envelope with a finger in it. And that's when he knows he has to get out of jail no matter what.
I really like a lot of the shots in this. Again, really, really taking straight from the book and everything. And the Yellow Bastard comes further along in the Sin City, mythos and everything. And I think Frank Miller's really got his style down super, super cutely once you get to these books and everything. And the movie follows suit a lot with that as well.
And once again, I'm going to say that I think that the Yellow Bastard really, really creeped me out a little bit more in the comics than he does in the movie, because when you see Nick Stahl and all those prosthetics and moving, it's just not as creepy as the static image on the page can be.
Maybe.
And how it just stands out with that yellow color. But I do love how much he describes how foul the guy smells.
I think it really works. And I think Nick Stahl, who's not the, biggest of time actors, if you could think Terminator 3 is a big time movie, But, I think he does pretty well.
Yeah, it's one of the top 5 Terminator movies.
This much is true. But no, I think the real star of this, of course, is K&B's makeup for Yellow Bastard, and it is like it's what it should be, man. It is just to me it is just gross. It's grotesque, but it so allows the actor to act.
And I love. I also love the story in case people don't remember or aren't familiar, but the whole way that Nick Stahl, Rourke Jr. got turned into the Yellow Bastard is because in that sort of opening part of this storyline, we got to see that Hartigan shot off the weapon. I think that's what he calls it. He shot off Rourke Jr.'s weapon, if you catch my drift. So his dad has been infusing him with God knows what kind of chemicals to get his manhood to grow back.
It ain't worth it to turn yellow, I don't think. And all kind
I guess
of
if
weird.
the only joy you get in life is sexually assaulting children, it's worth being yellow for.
But I think that's such a good, just really dark, messed up thing where he's just like, he only gets his jollies by the screams, and like that is just such a creepy thing that I gotta applaud how awful that is.
And I would have liked it if Hartigan looked at him and said, "Man, you look awful, but to be honest, it's kind of a lateral move. Nick Stahl, you're not that handsome."
Hey,
but I do like the way the Yellow Bastard outsmarted Hartigan. And Hartigan gets free, and he knows he's got to run to rescue Nancy. And the Yellow Bastard doesn't even know Nancy's real name, so he can't find her. But he knows that these letters, and he's kind of set up and played Hartigan as his pawn. And Hartigan falls right into the trap and goes to Katie's, where Nancy's up on stage showing as little skin as a dancer can.
Oh, of course. But yeah, now I'll talk about this real quick, just because it's one of the things. They actually built that bar. That was one of the few scenes one of the few sets that they actually built throughout the entire thing. That's why it does look a little bit more different than the rest of the movie. That's why this one does have a little bit more color than anything else does, because they couldn't quite light it the exact same way that they would have any of the other scenes in the movie.
And it also had a nice little cameo by Marv, which was something that caused me to thump a lot of people's heads back in the mid-2000s when they kept asking me, "So you've read the comics, how did Marv come back to life?" Did you guys ever get that question?
I think somebody had asked me that. It was probably my brother or something asked me that question when we went to see it, and I had to kind of explain to him what the books were about.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever heard of nonlinear storytelling?
I just look at people and go, "Did you question Pulp Fiction?" And most of them go, "Well, yeah, I did," until somebody told me what it was. Like, all right, fine, fair enough.
Yeah, but I would just thump people in the forehead. And then sometimes I would say Lazarus Pit and just leave it at that.
Lazarus Pit. People are really scratching their heads going, "I don't know where that fits in."
Magic beans.
But the whole thing goes back to the same farm where Kevin operates out of.
Great, and another little thing we see Kevin in there as well. I thought that was a nice little, again, more nonlinear stuff for you.
But nobody asked me how Kevin came back to life. They just wanted to know about Marv.
I could care less about Kevin. They probably saw him and just like, "Oh, cool," and then forgot all about it because all he does is sit there and read the Bible.
And then the big climax of the movie is of course Hartigan just turning the Yellow Bastard's head into a puddle of neon yellow goo, but not after with his bare hands rips off what his father worked so hard to grow back. And just the way it's all stringy and rubbery, just the way that scene looked, I think was a big success for this movie.
K&B, man, all day long. It's just what they do. We need to make something all messed up. Oh, these are the guys to call.
So what did you think of that final showdown between Hartigan and the Yellow Bastard, Sean? Was this corny on your corny meter?
No, I like it actually. And it's funny because when you think, if you're wondering whether or not Rodriguez is the real deal, just keep in mind that he reined in both Bruce Willis and Mickey Rourke in the same movie. That is impressive.
That's what they call the dufecta.
He is a guy who can really kind of get people in and rein them in. And honestly, I think because of the amount of time that he keeps them, that they almost don't have enough time to start mucking about. I think he said.
And I don't want to step on anything Sean has going on later, but I've seen him rein in a third big ego actor before too.
Yeah, but he's also gone through, like, I think they said they shot Mickey Rourke stuff in like a week and a half or 2 weeks. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's just
but
crazy.
I would imagine that's plenty of Mickey Rourke for anybody.
But I mean, yeah, but it's so quick, it's so fast, and they just get in and get it done, and that's just,
in my opinion, best part of the movie.
Yeah, they just don't have enough time to mess around, and I think that's one of the biggest things. But as you hear from all the stories and stuff with like Bruce Willis, he'll do whatever you want as long as he like respects what you do. If he does not respect you, you are going to get the Kevin Smith into that stick.
You'll have a bad time.
Bad times indeed.
Yeah. Well, and then, we see Hartigan realizes the only way to protect Nancy is for him to commit suicide. And we get to see him in what looks to me like an animated silhouette blow his brains out and fall on the ground. And it takes us straight into Adam's all-time favorite actor, Josh Hartnett, for the nice little bookend on the show.
Well, the animated thing really wasn't even animated so much as it was just automatically keyed. So, I mean, if you watch the DVD and stuff, they'll show you exactly what that scene looks like. You just reverse key that stuff, which is neat because if you ever start playing around with keying and stuff while you're doing editing, you'll see a lot of cool Sin City stuff that you just end up matting out and whatnot later. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, we get, and again, Hartnett in small doses, I don't mind.
And it's kind of nice to see Hartnett delivering justice to Becky, and it makes it feel like that little almost non sequitur opening scene has a reason now.
Yeah, at least they got something else in there, and it didn't leave you scratching your head the entire time, going, "What was with that beginning scene, man? That didn't make no sense." So yeah. All right, well, let's get down to it. There's a lot of ways this one could go, but we have to find out how this movie relates back to our good friend Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
No less than 6 actors that find themselves in Sin City have worked with Sylvester Stallone. It's an embarrassment of riches at the HMP compound. But today, we're going to focus on the man I would describe as Hollywood's actual real-life version of the Joker, Mickey Rourke. We've all heard the rumors about Mickey Rourke, and if you have an internet connection and even the most passing of interest in celebrity, you have to think to yourself, surely not all of these rumors are true, but after having worked with the man, I can tell you with certainty they are. I don't throw around terms like crazy bananas and head full of snakes, but that really is the best way to describe someone that has a no wearing red policy on set because it makes him mad. Andy has an on-set DJ and an on-set trainer. Andy punched a dent in his rental car because his 19-year-old co-star had the audacity to roll his eyes while Mickey was talking to him about the power of crystals. Look, I know making fun of Mickey Rourke's sanity is like shooting mentally challenged fish in the world's smallest barrel, but these are my experiences with the guy, and I wonder how he behaved on the set of Sin City, because I'll tell you, there's no way on God's glorious ground that Bruce Willis is going to put up with any of that crap. And neither would Sylvester Stallone. Mickey Rourke has worked with HMP's official celebrity twice. Once on Get Carter, hold for applause, and then again on the first Expendables movie, which either means Stallone has the capacity to overlook Mickey Rourke's Nuttown Jamboree, or Mickey Rourke didn't try any of that crap around Stallone, and I'm going to guess it's the latter. Because Mickey Rourke has said on record that he has Stallone to thank for getting him work when he needed it most. The truth is, Stallone and Mickey Rourke are friends, and as weird as it is to think about, they actually make each other better. Stallone reins in Mickey's craziness, and Mickey ups Stallone's acting game, who, come on, let's be fair, has mailed in a performance from time to time. So there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone connection. Now, Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man, let's review this movie so we can get some much needed downtime because no kidding, fellas, I am more than a little crazy right now.
Well, I'm going to say one thing about Stallone and Mickey Rourke is they've both pretended to be boxers, but unfortunately, Mickey Rourke did it in an actual boxing ring, not in a movie.
Very true.
Couple of shots to the head. But hey, at the end of the day, I would say more than Stallone, Robert Rodriguez actually needs to take most of the credit for bringing Mickey Rourke back in because, when he brought him back in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, that was almost kind of the start of his getting back into business. So anyway. All right, let's get down to it here on Hero Movie Podcast. We have the official patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to see that, go on down to facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. Throw a like up there and look at the top of the screen. You'll see our Robin rating system all laid out there for you, so there's no mistaking what in the heck we're talking about. Bruce, where does Sin City from 2005 fall on the H&P Robin rating system for you, sir?
I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, particularly The Hard Goodbye. I don't think that I made it clear when we were talking about the movie, but I actually enjoyed The Yellow Bastard the least, which is unfortunate because it is really what we're supposed to be most invested in this movie. The comic book story's great, but I blame the movie version shortcomings on the actors. I've been, and perhaps it's unfair, but I've been sour on Bruce Willis for a while now. And like we said before, Jessica Alba seems like the last person you should cast as Nancy. It effectively transforms her from an ever nude to somebody that would make Tobias Funke proud. But I would assert that the young actress who plays the 11-year-old Nancy is far more charismatic than Alba is. And having said that, I absolutely loved the groundbreaking visuals. I loved the elevation of noir tough guys to an impossible level. So I do give the movie a Tim Drake, despite those certain reservations.
Oh, very good. Mr. Keenan.
It's funny because I'm giving it a very low Tim Drake, this movie. I do appreciate the work that went into this. Just specifically that scene where Marv goes through the cop car. I mean, that seemed impossible to do before you actually saw the movie. But, this time has rolled on, at least for me, when it comes to this movie. Like fake tough guy lines from someone who's never actually thrown a punch at someone. I got to give it a very low Tim Drake.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did I say Tim Drake? I'm in Damian Wayne.
Oh, man, you
Damian
are tired,
Wayne.
man. Too much driving.
Wow.
We probably passed each other on the
You're not
highway at
kidding.
some point and didn't even recognize it.
I did feel that the way you were going, it seemed like that was awful high, but I wasn't going to take it away from you. I was just like, well, he kind of crapped on this the whole time, but he's going Tim Drake, fair enough. And they're like, no, Damian Wayne. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, that made more sense.
Low Damian Wayne.
Not as bad as the time when Adam got Dick Grayson and Jason Todd confused.
Hey, man, times are rough and weird. And they may be getting that way again. Who's to say so? But let's get down to me. I think I fall in more of the Bruce camp. Now, back in 2005, I think I would have put this, had H&P been in the works then, that would have stopped at 80 shows if we'd have started in 2005 because we probably wouldn't have had as much material as we do now. But back in 2005, I would have gone, Dick Grayson all the way. Having, this over decade worth of absence between the movies and everything, I think I'm going to just I'm going to go, I can't go Damien. I think I have to go Tim Drake on this one. But it still works in most of the ways that I want it to work. It's still better than A Dame to Kill For, the movie. But it is a product of its time. There are things that I wish I could go back and kind of change and make better and kind of like everything from really adjust the color to make it just super, super black and white, like 95% of the time and only put the proper splashes of color. But, it was tough selling a black, even though it wasn't, but a black and white movie to the majority of audiences out there because if people say, oh, a black and white movie, I don't want to go see that. I don't know what's wrong with people, but that certainly is the case. So I wish they would have gone for a little bit more starker of black and white to just really nail home that noir stuff. But it is what it is, and I still like it well enough. At some point down the line, though, and we'll see if this makes a difference. At some point down the line, we're going to do the kind of director's cut. And this should be well over a year from now. But we'll do the director's cut where they have all three of the stories, in separate fashions. So you have the whole thing. There's stuff added in there for each particular one.
We need a supercut where they put Dwight's story from A Dame to Kill For in it too.
Yeah, honestly, that could be. Steven Soderbergh, get on that because he does stuff like that for like funds and practices. That he really does. So Steven Soderbergh, get on putting this together for a full ultimate cut of everything the way that it should be. So he does that kind of jazz. Anyway, so next week we're doing it a little bit earlier than normal because we got a Patreon people, and of course we have the holidays special, and then of course or the year-end special, as well as Rogue One. So we're doing it early. And we're going to give you a Christmas episode next week. This one is going to be called, this is on Netflix, so there's no excuse for any of you out there in the HMP Nation not to see it. So it is Marvel, my stupid little thing.
Frostfight. I think it's called Frostfight.
Frostfight. I knew there was F's in it, but I didn't want to, it's a family-friendly show. So Frostfight, my brother-in-law told me that he was watching this with his son, who is, by the way, like 2, so, and he liked it. So why the heck not? So we're going to be doing that to get in the Christmas spirit and everything. And, of course, after that, we'll be doing the Patreon thing there as well. So, again, we'll have those votes up there for you. Should be by Tuesday. So that is it, everybody. Let's start with Mr. Keenan and find out where we can see more of his things on the internet this week.
Go to Hero Movie Shown on Twitter. That is where you will find me.
Boom, Mr. Bruce Leslie.
Got kind of a shorter episode of Heroes and Villains out this past week, but due to the holiday, Thanksgiving, and me being on the road. But it's not the length of the podcast that matters, right, guys? Right?
That's what I always say.
It's how it makes you feel.
How it makes
and then we should
feel.
have a full-size Chubby Wizard on Wednesday where people can hear us talk about the first parts of this crazy CW 4-night crossover event.
Yeah. 4-night Chubby Wizard. That's almost dirty. All right. I'm not, there we go. And, of course, HeroMoviePodcast.com, all that kind of good stuff. Hopefully we'll be getting some more stuff later. But there's some things that are going on, so stuff's going to happen. Don't worry. So that is it, everybody. Join us back next week when we talk about Marvel Frostfight. I don't know what it's going to be like, but, hey, it's a fun time. So that is it. Patreon.com/HMP, HeroMoviePodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next week. For Bruce, Leslie, Sean Keenan, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.